I crouch behind the marble angel with the chipped wing, my knees pressed against damp earth that smells like moss and rot. The cold seeps through my jeans. I should not be here. Again. But the woman is already kneeling. She moves slowly, her silver hair pulled back in a loose bun that catches the late morning light. Her hands work the soil around a headstone so small and plain it could belong to anyone. Or no one. The grave sits in the back section of Willowbrook Cemetery, where the grass grows tall and uneven, where the groundskeeper's mower rarely reaches. Weeds choke the neighboring plots. Plastic flowers fade to gray, but not this one. The woman pulls a trowel from her canvas bag, the kind gardeners carry to farmers' markets. She digs with precision, creating neat holes in a half circle around the base of the stone. Her nails collect dirt, dark crescents beneath each fingertip. She does not wear gloves, does not rush. I shift my weight. My foot crunches a twig. She does not look up. From her bag, she removes a bundle wrapped in damp newspaper. White daisies. She unwraps them carefully, shaking loose soil from their roots before settling each one into the ground. Her fingers press the earth back around them, patting it firm. Gentle, like tucking a child into bed. The headstone is gray granite. Simple, rectangular. I squint, trying to make out the inscription, but the angle is wrong and the morning shadows fall across it in jagged lines. I can see enough to know what is missing. No name. My pulse kicks up. I lean forward, the angel's wing digging into my shoulder blade. Cemeteries are full of stories. Full of names people need to remember, dates they cannot forget, epitaphs that beg to be read. Beloved mother, cherished father, forever in our hearts. But this stone offers nothing, just numbers carved into the granite. 2 rows, that is all. The woman finishes planting the last daisy and sits back on her heels. She wipes her palms on her khaki pants, leaving streaks of mud. Then she bows her head. Her lips move, forming words I cannot hear. A prayer, maybe, or a confession. The wind picks up, rattling the oak branches overhead. A few leaves drift down, landing on the freshly turned soil. The woman does not brush them away. She stays there, head bowed, hands folded in her lap. Seconds stretch into a minute, maybe 2. I hold my breath. Then she rises, joints stiff, one hand bracing against the headstone for support. She gathers her trowel and empty newspaper, tucking them back into her bag. She runs her fingers across the top of the stone, a gesture so tender it makes my throat ache. She turns and walks away. I stay hidden until her figure disappears beyond the iron gates, until I hear the distant sound of a car engine starting. Only then do I stand, brushing dirt from my knees, and move toward the grave. Up close, the daisies look fragile. Their white petals tremble in the breeze. They will not last long, not in this neglected corner where nothing else seems to thrive. But they are here now, bright against the gray. I stare at the headstone. 2 dates, birth and death. 1975, 1998, 23 years old. No name, no beloved son, no rest in peace, just numbers, cold and factual and wrong. My chest tightens, a familiar pressure that starts beneath my ribs and spreads upward, squeezing my lungs. I know this feeling. Have carried it for 2 years now, since the night my phone rang at 3 in the morning and my mother's voice cracked down the line, saying words that did not make sense. Could not be real. Kyle, accident. Gone. I blink hard, forcing the memory back down. This is not about me. This is not about my brother. but the question burns anyway. Who plants flowers on an unnamed grave? I think of the woman's steady hands, the way she whispered to the stone like it could hear her, like someone was listening. Whoever lies beneath this dirt mattered to her, matters still. But why hide the name? Why leave the story untold? I take a step back, my sneakers sinking into soft ground. A crow calls from somewhere in the trees, harsh and grating. The sound makes me flinch. I glance around, suddenly aware of how alone I am. How quiet. The woman is gone. The cemetery is empty except for the dead and me. I should leave. Go back to my car. Drive home. Forget this. But I cannot stop staring at those white daisies, their roots still damp, their petals perfect. This is the fourth Sunday I have watched her do this. The fourth time I have hidden like a coward, spying on a stranger's grief. The fourth time I have asked myself why I care. Why I keep coming back to this place where the living kneel for the dead and whisper secrets the wind steals away. I do not have an answer. I only know that next Sunday I will be here again, waiting, watching, because something about that unnamed grave and the woman who tends it with dirt under her nails pulls at me like a hook lodged beneath my skin. And I need to know why. I stay 30 feet back as she moves through the wrought iron gates. The metal groans as it swings shut behind her, a rusty protest I can feel in my teeth. She walks with purpose but no hurry, hands empty now that the daisies are planted. Her silver hair catches the late morning sun. My car is parked 2 rows behind hers. I duck low in my seat, fingers already on the ignition. This is wrong. I know it is wrong. 4 Sundays of watching from a distance is one thing. Following her home is another. But my hands turn the key anyway. Her sedan is older than mine, a faded blue that might have been vibrant once. Now it is the color of denim washed too many times. The paint is mottled near the wheel wells, rust creeping up like a slow infection. She climbs in, shuts the door with a solid thunk. I wait for her to back out first. The engine of my Honda stutters to life. My palms are damp against the steering wheel, the leather grip slick under my thumbs. I flex my fingers to stop the shaking. It does not work. She pulls onto Maple Street, heading west. I count 3 cars between us before I follow. Through my windshield, I can see something hanging from her rearview mirror. It sways with each turn. A rosary, dark wooden beads catching the light. The crucifix at the end is silver, small enough to miss if you were not looking. But I am looking. I cannot stop looking. The rosary twists in a slow circle as she brakes at the first stop sign. My breath catches. Kyle had one of those in his car, not because he was religious. Mom gave it to him the day he got his license, pressed it into his palm with both hands, and said something about protection. He hung it on the mirror to humor her, laughed about it later, told me it clashed with his indie rock aesthetic. He kept it there anyway. The police returned it to us in a plastic bag, along with his wallet. His phone with the cracked screen, one sneaker. I grip the steering wheel harder. The shaking spreads to my wrists, my forearms. 2 years ago. 2 years since the call came at 3 in the morning. 2 years since I learned what the words blunt force trauma and internal bleeding actually mean when spoken by a police officer in a hospital waiting room. The sedan ahead of me turns left onto Cherry Lane. I follow. The driver who killed Kyle was 19. Blue .13 on the breathalyzer. Failed every sobriety test. His lawyer argued it was his first offense. He was a good kid, college scholarship pending. The judge gave him 6 months. He served 4. 4 months for 26 years of life. I wonder if his parents visit his grave, if anyone plants flowers for him. The rage is instant and familiar, a live wire in my chest. It hums there constantly, just under my ribs. Some days I forget about it for an hour or two. Most days I do not. The blue sedan slows. She uses her turn signal even though the road is empty. So careful, so deliberate. The kind of driver who checks her mirrors twice, who leaves space between her bumper and the car ahead. The kind of driver who has never caused an accident, never taken a life. I stay 4 car lengths back, far enough that she will not notice, close enough that I will not lose her. We pass the elementary school, its playground empty on a Sunday. Then the post office with its flag hanging limp in the still air. The streets are quiet. Small towns bleed population on weekend mornings. Everyone is at church or brunch or sleeping off Saturday night. Ahead, her brake lights flare red. I slow. My heart kicks against my sternum. She turns into a parking lot. I recognize the faded sign immediately. Sunrise Diner. Peeling yellow paint and a neon sunrise that has not worked since I was a teenager. The building hunches on the corner like something trying not to be noticed. She parks near the entrance, turns off the engine. The rosary stops swinging. I pull into a spot 3 rows away, tucked between a pickup truck and a minivan. From here I can see the profile of her face. She does not move, just sits there, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead at nothing. 60 seconds pass, then 90. My phone buzzes in the cup holder. I ignore it. What am I doing? What do I think this will accomplish? She is just an old woman who tends a grave. That is all. It has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with Kyle. I should start my car and drive home. I should delete the route from my GPS. I should stop coming to the cemetery on Sundays. The woman opens her car door and steps out. I watch her cross the parking lot, shoulders straight, purse tucked under one arm. She pulls open the diner door and disappears inside. Through the wide front windows, I can see her choose a booth in the back. A waitress approaches. The woman orders without looking at the menu. My hands are still shaking. I unbuckle my seatbelt. Open my door. The October air is cool against my flushed face, carrying the smell of asphalt and coffee and something frying in oil. My legs feel unsteady as I stand. This is the line. This is where watching becomes confrontation, where curiosity becomes intrusion. I close my car door, lock it, walk toward the diner entrance. The rage hums louder in my chest, but underneath it is something else. Something I have not felt in 2 years, not since the night Kyle died. Hope. I arrive 40 minutes early, which feels pathetic even as I'm doing it. The morning air bites through my jacket, sharp enough to make my eyes water. Or maybe that's just convenient timing. The marble angel looms over a cluster of graves in the east corner, wings spread wide like she's trying to shelter the dead from judgment. Moss creeps up one ankle. A crack runs through her left wing. I crouch behind her stone robes, my knees pressing into damp grass, and wait. The cemetery is empty except for crows. They pick through the overgrown section where the headstones tilt at odd angles, forgotten. I check my phone. 8:17. She always comes at 9. My thighs start to cramp by 8:40. I shift my weight and a twig snaps under my boot. The sound cracks through the silence like a gunshot. I freeze. Nothing moves except the crows. This is insane. I'm hiding behind a statue, stalking a stranger, because last week I followed her to a diner and couldn't make myself go inside. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands locked on the steering wheel, until she came back out and drove away. Then I went home and didn't sleep, but I can't stop thinking about her kneeling at that grave. The way her fingers moved through the dirt, gentle, purposeful, like she was tucking someone into bed. Kyle's grave has a thin layer of pollen across the top. I haven't visited in 6 months. At 8:53, the blue sedan pulls through the cemetery gates. My pulse kicks up, hammering against my ribs. I duck lower behind the angel, even though she's still too far away to see me. She parks in the same spot. 3rd row, near the oak tree. The door opens with a groan of old hinges, and she steps out carrying an armful of white lilies wrapped in brown paper. The flowers look fresh, their petals tight and clean against the dull gray sky. She walks slowly. Not from age exactly, though she must be in her 70s. It's something else. Deliberate, like she's counting each step, making them matter. I hold my breath as she approaches the grave. 10 feet away from where I'm crouched. Close enough that I can see the lines around her eyes, the silver strands of hair escaping from her bun. She kneels in the grass without hesitation, setting the lilies aside. Her hands disappear into the weeds growing around the base of the headstone, pulling them out in steady, practiced motions. Dandelions, crabgrass. She makes a small pile beside her knee. Then she stops. Her fingertips rest on the stone, tracing something carved there. I lean forward, squinting, trying to see what she's reading. Numbers, just numbers. 1998, not a name. Not a message. Just the year, stark and lonely against the gray granite. Who gets buried with only a date? No name, no beloved husband or cherished mother or rest in peace. Just a year, like a historical marker for something everyone wants to forget. She keeps tracing the numbers, her index finger following the carved lines over and over. 1, 9, 9, 8, like Braille, like prayer. That's when I notice her other hand. A ring on her left finger, tarnished gold catching the weak morning light. The band is thin, worn smooth in places. A wedding ring. But she's alone. My throat tightens. I know what it looks like to wear a ring after the person who gave it to you is gone. Mom did that for a year after Dad left, until she finally threw it in a drawer and started pretending it never existed. This woman isn't pretending. She's here, on her knees in damp grass, tending a grave with no name. She picks up the lilies and unwraps them slowly, folding the brown paper into a neat square before setting it aside. Then she begins arranging the flowers in a metal vase bolted to the headstone. Her movements are careful, angling each stem just so, creating something deliberate out of chaos. And then she starts to hum. The melody hits me like a fist to the sternum. Low and steady, rising and falling in a rhythm I know by heart, even though I haven't heard it in years. It's a hymn. The one Mom used to sing while folding laundry on Sunday afternoons, back when we still pretended we were the kind of family that believed in something bigger than ourselves. Back before Kyle died and Mom stopped singing altogether. The woman's voice is soft, barely louder than the wind moving through the oak branches. But I hear every note, every pause. My eyes start to burn. I press my palms against the cold marble of the angel's base, grounding myself. I will not cry, not here, not now. But the humming continues, weaving through the air like a thread trying to stitch something back together. The woman arranges the last lily, then sits back on her heels, still humming, staring at the headstone. At the year with no name. I don't understand. I don't understand any of this. Who is she mourning? Why does she come here every Sunday with fresh flowers and dirt under her nails? Why does she hum hymns over a grave that looks like no one else has visited in decades? And why does watching her make my chest feel like it's cracking open? She finishes the hymn. The last note hangs in the air for a moment before dissolving into silence. Then she reaches into her coat pocket and pulls out a small gardening trowel. She starts digging near the base of the headstone, creating a shallow hollow in the earth. From another pocket, she produces a small packet of seeds. She tears it open with her teeth, pours the seeds into her palm, and scatters them into the hollow. She's planting something, not just bringing flowers. She's planting seeds in the soil of someone who died 27 years ago. She covers the seeds with dirt, patting it down gently. Then she stands, brushing grass from her knees, and bows her head. Her lips move. I can't hear the words, but I recognize the shape of prayer. I should leave. I should stand up and walk away before she turns around and sees me crouched behind this statue like some kind of graveyard voyeur. But I can't move. I'm frozen, watching this woman tend a nameless grave with more care than I've shown anyone in 2 years. She crosses herself. Then she picks up the folded brown paper, tucks the empty seed packet into her coat, and turns to leave. That's when her eyes meet mine. I stop breathing. She doesn't gasp, doesn't stumble back or demand to know what I'm doing. She just looks at me, her pale blue eyes calm as lake water, and waits, like she's been expecting me all along. I should stand. The thought comes slow, like wading through cold water. My knees crack as I rise from behind the marble angel, and the sound feels obscene in the cemetery quiet. A crow startles from an oak branch overhead. The woman does not move. She stands 3 feet from the headstone, dirt caked under her fingernails, a white lily stem still clutched in her left hand. Her eyes find mine, and I expect anger. Accusation. Instead, I see pale blue irises, calm as lake water before a storm. The kind of calm that comes from practice. I'm sorry. The words tumble out before I can stop them. I didn't mean to intrude. Didn't you? Her voice carries no edge. Just curiosity, gentle as the hymn she'd been humming moments before. The same hymn my mother sang while folding laundry, back when our house still smelled like ginger and clean cotton instead of silence. My throat tightens. I saw you here before 4 times. I sound like a stalker. I am a stalker. Heat crawls up my neck. I just wanted to understand. Understand what? I gesture toward the headstone, its granite face blank except for carved numbers. 1998. Why you come here? Why you care for a grave with no name? The woman tilts her head, and sunlight catches silver threading through her hair. She looks at me the way my high school art teacher used to look at unfinished sketches, seeing something beneath the surface I hadn't meant to reveal. She sets the lily down gently atop the others, brushing soil from her palms. I'm Dorothy, she says. Maya. My own name feels strange on my tongue. I haven't introduced myself to anyone new in months, maybe longer. Dorothy nods once, as if she already knew. As if she'd been expecting me to emerge from behind that angel all along. The thought sends a shiver down my spine, despite the May warmth pressing against my shoulders. She crosses the space between us in 3 measured steps. Up close, I notice the fine lines etched around her eyes, the tarnished gold wedding band loose on her fourth finger. A widow's ring. I know because my mother wears one too, though she hides it in a jewelry box now, wrapped in tissue paper that crinkles when she thinks no one can hear. "You've been watching," Dorothy says. Not a question. "Yes, why?" The word hangs between us. Why? Such a small question, such an impossible answer. Because I saw you kneeling in the dirt and felt something crack inside my chest. Because you hum hymns over a nameless grave, and I can't remember the last time I hummed anything. Because 2 years ago my brother died, and I don't know how to visit his grave without my lungs collapsing. "I don't know," I lie. Dorothy's expression doesn't change, but her eyes do. Something shifts there, recognition or pity or both. She glances back at the headstone. "It's not what you think," she says quietly. My pulse kicks up. What do I think? That this is someone I loved, a husband, a child. She pauses, running her thumb over the ridge of her wedding band. The gesture looks automatic, worn smooth by decades of repetition. That's what most people assume when they see me here. Is it not? The question comes out sharper than I intend. Dorothy shakes her head. The breeze picks up, carrying the scent of fresh soil and something sweeter. Lilies. White lilies she plants every Sunday without fail. I've memorized her routine without meaning to. The weeding, the plantings, the prayer. Then who? I ask. The words sound too loud, too desperate, but I need to know. I've spent 4 Sundays hiding behind angels and oak trees, watching this woman tend a grave like it's sacred ground, and the not knowing has burrowed under my skin like a splinter. Dorothy turns to face me fully. Her pale eyes hold mine, steady and unflinching. When she speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper, but each word lands with the weight of stone. "Not a stranger," she says. "Someone I needed to forgive." The air leaves my lungs. Forgive. The word echoes in my skull, foreign and sharp-edged. My pulse hammers against my wrists, my throat, the hollow beneath my jaw. "Family," I manage. Dorothy smiles. It's a small, sad curve of her mouth that doesn't reach her eyes. She shakes her head again. "Then who?" The question cracks open something in my chest. I think of Kyle, of the driver who killed him, of the rage I've carried like a second skeleton for 24 months. Why would you forgive someone who isn't even family? Dorothy looks at the headstone again, at the year carved into granite. 1998, 27 years ago. She's been coming here for 27 years, planting flowers for someone she needed to forgive. "Because," she says slowly, each word deliberate, "forgiveness isn't always about them. Sometimes it's the only way to survive." The ground tilts beneath my feet. I think of the driver who killed Kyle, 23 years old, drunk. He got 6 months. I got a phone call at 2 in the morning and a brother-shaped hole that swallows everything. "Survive what?" My voice sounds hollow. Dorothy meets my eyes again. This time I see it clearly. The same thing I see in the mirror every morning when I force myself to look. Grief. Old and deep and still bleeding if you press hard enough. "The hatred," she says. "It was killing me slower than any driver could." The word stops my heart. Driver. What do you mean? But I already know. Somehow, standing in this cemetery with dirt under our fingernails and lilies wilting in the sun, I already know. Dorothy gestures to the grave at our feet, to the headstone with no name, only numbers, only the year someone died. "This grave," she says, her voice steady as prayer, "belongs to the person who killed my husband." I stand frozen, the dirt under my own nails suddenly cold. 27 years. The words echo in my skull like a bell struck once and left ringing. Dorothy straightens, brushing her palms against her slacks, and the simplicity of the gesture breaks something in me. How does someone do that? Dust themselves off after saying they tend the grave of the person who destroyed their life. Come have coffee with me. Her voice is steady, as if she has just invited me to a book club meeting. Not confess to an act so incomprehensible it makes my ribs ache. I don't. There's a diner across the street. She tilts her head toward the iron gates. They make decent pecan pie. You look like you could use something sweet. I want to refuse. To run back to my car and never return to this cemetery, to this woman who has cracked open a door I have kept bolted shut for 2 years. But my feet move anyway, following her down the narrow path between headstones. The October wind smells like wet grass and decay. My throat feels tight, like I have swallowed a stone. We cross the street in silence. The diner squats low and square, its neon sign buzzing faintly in the gray afternoon light. Sunrise Diner, though it is well past noon. The door jingles when Dorothy pushes it open, and the smell hits me immediately. Coffee, bitter and burnt, grease from the griddle, cinnamon. The booths are red vinyl, cracked at the seams, and Dorothy slides into one near the back. I sit across from her, my hands clenched in my lap. A waitress appears, her ponytail swinging. Dorothy orders black coffee and pecan pie without looking at the menu. I ask for the same because my brain cannot form another thought. When the waitress leaves, Dorothy folds her hands on the table. Her wedding ring catches the light. Tarnished gold, the band thin and smooth from decades of wear. His name was Richard, she says. I blink, my chest tightens. We were married for 32 years. Her voice does not waver. He loved fishing. Terrible at it, mind you. Never caught a thing bigger than his hand. But he would sit on the dock for hours, humming to himself, happy as a man could be. The waitress returns with 2 steaming mugs and a slice of pie for each of us. The pecans glisten under a shellac of syrup. Dorothy picks up her fork, but she does not eat. She just holds it, tracing the tines along the edge of the plate. He told the worst jokes, she continues. The kind that make you groan more than laugh. What do you call a fish with no eyes? A FSH. She smiles faintly, and it is the saddest thing I have ever seen. I would roll my eyes every time. I would give anything to hear one more. I wrap my hands around the mug. The heat burns my palms, but I do not let go. I need the pain to anchor me here, to keep me from floating away on the wave of grief rising in the booth. What happened? The question scrapes out of me before I can stop it. Dorothy sets the fork down. She takes a slow sip of her coffee, her eyes distant, looking at something I cannot see. It was a rainy night, October, 27 years ago last week. Her voice is quiet now, almost a whisper. Richard was driving home from a church meeting. He always took the back roads, said they were prettier even in the dark. My pulse pounds in my ears. I know where this is going. I know, and I cannot breathe. There was a collision. The word lands between us like a stone dropped into still water. Head on, the other driver crossed the center line. I want to ask if the other driver survived. I want to ask if they were punished. I want to ask how Dorothy can stand to plant flowers on their grave when Kyle's killer walks free after 6 months in a county jail. But the questions tangle in my throat, choking me. Dorothy's hands tighten around her cup. Richard was rushed to the hospital. They said he had a good chance. Internal injuries, broken ribs, but nothing the surgeons couldn't fix. Her voice cracks just barely. He lived for 3 days. I sat beside him the whole time, held his hand while the machines beeped and hissed. I picture it. The sterile white room, the smell of antiseptic, the steady rhythm of a heart monitor. I picture Dorothy, younger then but still weathered, gripping the hand of the man she loved while he slipped away. And the other driver. The words force themselves out, sharp and jagged. Dorothy meets my eyes. Hers are pale blue, calm as lake water, and that calmness terrifies me more than any rage could. He died instantly. The diner tilts. The fluorescent lights buzz too loud. I taste copper, metallic and bitter, and realize I have bitten the inside of my cheek. 23 years old, Dorothy says softly. Drunk. His blood alcohol was 3 times the legal limit. I think of Kyle, 26. Leaving a concert, his ears still ringing with music. I think of the driver who hit him, 42, repeat offender, out in 6 months. How, my voice breaks. How do you, but I cannot finish. The question is too big, too impossible. How do you forgive that? How do you kneel at the grave of the person who stole 32 years of fishing and terrible jokes and rainy October nights? How do you plant white daisies when you should be planting rage? Dorothy does not answer. She just looks at me, her weathered hands steady around the cup, and I realize she is waiting. Waiting for me to ask the question burning inside me. The one I cannot speak. The one that will break me open if I do. The silence stretches between us, heavy as the grave dirt still caked beneath my fingernails. Dorothy's voice doesn't waver when she tells me about the other driver. He was 23 years old, blood alcohol 3 times the legal limit. She lifts her coffee cup, takes a slow sip. He died on impact. The steering column crushed his chest. They said he wouldn't have felt anything. My hands clench beneath the table. The vinyl booth squeaks. Richard lived 3 more days. The fluorescent lights above us hum. Somewhere in the kitchen, a dish clatters. Dorothy stares past me, through the window toward the cemetery gates. Her pale blue eyes have gone distant, fixed on something I cannot see, something 27 years gone. They airlifted him to the trauma center in the city. I followed in our truck, drove 80 miles an hour on wet roads, couldn't see through the rain. She blinks, refocuses on me. Funny, isn't it? I could have killed someone that night myself. Grief makes you reckless. I want to tell her I understand. That after Kyle died, I drove drunk twice before my best friend hid my keys, but my throat has sealed shut. Internal bleeding, fractured ribs, a collapsed lung. Dorothy ticks off the injuries like a grocery list, clinical and detached. They operated twice, said he had a fighter's chance. I sat beside his bed and counted the beeps on the heart monitor. 112 per minute, then 98, then 73. The coffee in my cup has gone cold. I haven't touched it since she started talking. My stomach is a clenched fist. The 3rd morning, he opened his eyes. Her voice cracks for the first time, just a hairline fracture in that calm facade. He couldn't speak. They had a tube down his throat, but he looked at me and I knew. I knew he was saying goodbye. A tear slides down her cheek. She doesn't wipe it away. They removed the tube that afternoon, gave us an hour, maybe 2. His voice was so quiet I had to put my ear against his lips to hear him. Dorothy's hands tighten around her coffee cup. The knuckles go white. He said, "Dottie, promise me something." I lean forward. The booth's edge digs into my ribs. I would have promised him anything, the moon, my life, whatever he needed. She meets my eyes. He said, "Do not let this destroy you." The words land like a fist to my sternum. That was it. That was all. His last words. Dorothy's thumb traces the rim of her cup, a repetitive motion that looks like prayer. He died 20 minutes later. I was holding his hand when the monitor went flat. The nurse had to pry my fingers away. The diner has gone silent around us. Or maybe the roaring in my ears has drowned out everything else. I taste copper. I've bitten the inside of my cheek. Dorothy continues, relentless. The funeral was on a Thursday. 200 people came. They said beautiful things about Richard, about forgiveness and heaven and God's plan. Her mouth twists. I wanted to scream at every single one of them. I find my voice. It comes out hoarse. "Did you—" "No," she smiles, but there's no warmth in it. "I was a good widow." I nodded and thanked them for coming and served them casserole and lemon bars. Then I went home and smashed every dish in the kitchen. Richard's mother's china, our wedding plates, all of it. Something in my chest loosens, just a fraction. For 6 months, I didn't leave the house except for groceries. I stopped going to church, stopped answering the phone. The grief counselor the hospital assigned me called 15 times. I never called back. Dorothy's fingers find the thin gold band on her left hand. She twists it. I was drowning in hate for that boy, for his parents who'd bought him the car, for the bar that served him, for God. My coffee cup trembles in my hands. I set it down before I spill. Then one morning, I woke up and realized I'd forgotten what Richard's laugh sounded like. Her voice drops to a whisper. The hatred had eaten it, eaten everything good. I was disappearing into this black hole, and Richard was disappearing with me. I stare at her weathered hands, steady now around the cup, the tarnished wedding band catching the light. Those hands that plant daisies at a killer's grave every Sunday. The question scrapes its way out of my throat. "How do you forgive that?" Dorothy doesn't answer right away. She reaches for her purse, an old brown leather thing with fraying straps. Her movements are deliberate, slow. She pulls out something small, a journal maybe, its edges worn soft as skin. "Let me show you something," she says. And I realize, sitting in this diner with cold coffee and my brother's ghost pressing against my ribs, that I'm terrified of whatever comes next. Dorothy doesn't answer right away. Her weathered fingers rest on the journal's cover, tracing patterns I cannot see. The silence stretches between us like taffy, sticky and uncomfortable. Behind the counter, someone drops a plate. The crash makes me flinch, but Dorothy doesn't move. She opens the journal slowly, as if the pages might crumble under her touch. The leather is worn soft at the edges, darkened by years of handling. I can see the spine is cracked, reinforced with clear tape that has yellowed to amber. This book has been opened many times before. Dorothy flips past pages covered in cramped handwriting. Dates blur together. September, October, November. She stops on a page near the middle, smooths it flat with her palm. "This one," she says. Her voice is steady, but her hands betray her. They tremble just slightly. 2 years after. She slides the journal across the table. The vinyl booth squeaks under me as I lean forward. My coffee has gone cold, but I don't care. I cannot look away from the page. The handwriting is neater here than in the earlier entries I glimpsed. Controlled. The date at the top reads March 14th, 2000. I do the math without meaning to. 27 months after Richard died. I read, forgiveness was the only way to survive, not for him, for me. The hatred was killing me slower than any driver could. My throat tightens. I force myself to keep reading. I woke up this morning and realized I had not thought about Richard's smile in 6 months. Only the accident, only the blood, only the other driver's name, which I chanted like a curse every night before sleep. I had let anger erase everything beautiful. I had given that boy more power in death than Richard ever had in life. I don't understand, I say. My voice comes out hoarse. You stopped hating him because you wanted to remember your husband. Dorothy shakes her head. She reaches across and turns the page for me. The next entry is dated a week later. The handwriting is messier now, slanting hard to the right. I drove to the cemetery today. Not to Richard's grave. To his. The boy who killed him, Jeremy. I finally let myself think his name. Jeremy Hollies, 23 years old. He had a mother too. I saw her once at the trial, her face gray as winter. She looked like I felt, hollowed out, destroyed. I wanted to tell her I hated her son. I wanted to scream it in her face. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. Because I knew. If our sons had switched places that night, if somehow Richard had been driving drunk and killed her boy, I would have shattered the same way. We were both just mothers who loved someone the world had decided was a monster. My hands are shaking now. I press them flat against the table, but I can still feel the tremor running through my bones. His name was Jeremy, I whisper. Dorothy nods. Jeremy Hollies. The name sits heavy in the air between us. I think of Kyle. I think of the man who killed him, whose name I know by heart, whose face I searched for online at 2 in the morning, memorizing every detail so I could fuel my rage, whose sentence I tracked with the focus of a hunter. I still don't see how you got from that to planting flowers on his grave, I say. The words come out sharper than I intend. You felt sorry for his mother. That's not the same as forgiving him. Dorothy's pale blue eyes meet mine. Keep reading. I look back down. There are more entries, dozens of them. The dates stretch across months, then years. I skip ahead, scanning. June 9th, 2000. I went back to the cemetery. I brought daisies. White ones like the ones Richard gave me on our first date. I put them on Jeremy's grave because no one else does. His mother moved away after the trial. He lies there alone. Maybe that is his punishment. To be forgotten. To have no one speak his name with anything but hatred. August 21st, 2001. 3 years now. I have been leaving flowers every Sunday. At first, I did it because I thought it would make me feel righteous. Merciful. Better than the anger. But something strange is happening. When I kneel in the dirt and pull the weeds, I do not think about Richard's last breath anymore. I think about his first words to me. How he said my name like it was a prayer. Dorothy, like that. Dorothy. The pages blur. I blink hard, but the tears come anyway. They drip onto the journal, darkening the paper. Dorothy reaches across and gently closes the book before the damage spreads. I thought forgiveness was a decision, I say. My voice cracks. One day you wake up and choose it, like flipping a switch. No, Dorothy says. She tucks the journal back into her purse, her movements slow and deliberate. It was more like water wearing down stone. Every Sunday I went, the weight got a little lighter. Not because Jeremy deserved it. Not because the act was less monstrous. But because carrying that hatred was breaking me into smaller and smaller pieces, I was disappearing. The diner feels too bright suddenly, too loud. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. Someone laughs at the counter, and the sound scrapes against my skull. What if I can't do that? The question comes out raw, desperate. What if the hatred is the only thing holding me together? Dorothy is quiet for a long moment. She looks at me the way I imagine she looked at her students once, when they asked questions that had no easy answers. "Then you will find out what happens when you let it," she says finally. "Whether you crumble or whether you discover what is underneath." Her words hang in the air. I want her to give me instructions, steps, a roadmap. Tell me how many Sundays it takes. Tell me what to say when I stand at a grave that should not exist. Tell me how to breathe around the glass shards lodged in my chest. But Dorothy just sips her coffee and waits. "Did it work?" I ask. My hands are still shaking. "Are you healed now? Fixed?" Dorothy sets down her cup. She looks at me with those calm, lake water eyes. "Every Sunday I plant flowers on the grave of the man who killed my husband," she says. "Do I seem fixed to you?" The question lands like a punch. Because I realize I have been waiting for her to tell me forgiveness is the cure. That if I just follow her path, the pain will end. That there is a finish line. Then what is the point? My voice rises. The couple in the next booth glances over. I do not care. If it doesn't fix you, if you are still broken after all these years, why do it at all? Dorothy leans forward. Her expression does not change, but something shifts in her eyes. Something darker, harder. "Because broken and dead are not the same thing," she says quietly. "And I chose to stay alive." The words sit between us like stones. Broken stays broken, but alive is not the same as consumed. My coffee has gone cold in the cup, a film forming on the surface, and I cannot look at Dorothy's face anymore because if I do, the thing clawing up my throat will tear me open. My hands shake. I press them flat against the sticky diner table, feel the residue of syrup and years of use under my palms. The vinyl booth squeaks when I shift my weight. "Kyle," I say. His name comes out raw. My brother. "Kyle." Dorothy does not move, does not reach for me, does not fill the silence with comfort I do not want. "He was 26. The numbers feel obscene. 26 years of life reduced to 2 syllables. He went to a concert downtown, some indie band he loved. I was supposed to go with him, but I had a deadline. A stupid project for a client who changed their mind 3 times about a logo. My throat closes. I force the words through anyway. "He texted me a video from the show. The crowd singing. He was smiling." I can still see the blue light from his phone illuminating his face, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners just like our fathers used to before everything went to hell. That was the last time I saw him alive. Dorothy's coffee cup settles onto the saucer with a soft click. Outside the diner window, a car passes, headlights cutting through the early evening gloom. The fluorescent lights above us buzz, a sound I have never noticed before this moment. "The driver was drunk," I continue, and now the words come faster, like poison I have been holding in my mouth for 2 years, burning through tissue, demanding release. 3 times over the legal limit. He ran a red light doing 60 in a 35 zone. Kyle was crossing the street to his car. I remember the police officer at my door. The way his hat left a red line across his forehead when he took it off. The way he said "killed on impact" like those words were supposed to be a mercy. They told me he didn't suffer. My laugh is a broken sound. Like that matters. Like the speed of death is some kind of gift. Dorothy's hands remain folded around her cup, steady, waiting. The driver walked away without a scratch, not even whiplash. My fingernails dig into the table's edge. They arrested him at the scene. Blood alcohol .24. He cried in court, said he was sorry, said he had a problem, that he was getting help. The rehook comes unbidden, visceral. He got 6 months. Dorothy's eyes close. Just for a moment. When they open again, something in them has shifted, deepened. Recognition. Rage on my behalf that she will never voice. 6 months in county jail, I say again, because saying it once is not enough, will never be enough to contain the enormity of that injustice. Out in 4 for good behavior. Kyle is dead, buried, gone. And the man who killed him is walking around, breathing, eating, sleeping. He has a job now. I looked him up online. He works at an auto parts store. He has a girlfriend. They went to a baseball game last month. He posted about it. My voice cracks on the last word. The tears I have been holding back since Dorothy opened her journal spill over, hot and sudden, blurring the diner into smears of red vinyl and yellow light. I want him dead, I whisper. I want him to feel what Kyle felt. I want his family to know what it is to get that phone call, to pick out a casket, to stand in a cemetery and realize the person you love most is in a box in the ground and will never, ever come back. Dorothy's hand moves. Slow, deliberate. She places her palm over mine. Her skin is paper-thin, soft, warm despite the cold coffee she has been holding. I feel the ridge of her tarnished wedding ring against my knuckle. I know, she says, not I understand. Not it will be okay. Just I know. The acknowledgement breaks something loose in my chest. I cry in a way I have not allowed myself since the funeral, when I stood beside my parents and felt the distance between us yawn wider than Kyle's grave. They wanted to forgive, to pray, to find meaning in meaningless death. I wanted to burn the world down. Dorothy does not tell me to stop. She does not offer tissues or platitudes. She simply sits, her hand over mine, an anchor in the flood. When I can breathe again, when the tears slow to a trickle and my ribs stop heaving, she asks a question so quiet I almost miss it. Do you visit your brother's grave? The shame hits like a fist. I shake my head. No, the admission costs me. I can't. I tried once, right after the headstone went up. I made it to the cemetery gates and had a panic attack in my car. I haven't been back. Dorothy's thumb moves against the back of my hand. A small, rhythmic pressure. Comfort without coddling. Why? She asks. Because it makes it real. The words tumble out. Because if I go there, if I see his name carved into stone, I have to accept that he is really gone. And I do not know how to do that. I do not know how to live in a world where Kyle is not. Dorothy is silent for a long moment. The diner hums around us. Someone drops a plate in the kitchen. The bell above the door jingles as a customer leaves. Then Dorothy squeezes my hand. Gentle, firm. Start there, she says. Not with forgiveness, not with the driver, with Kyle. With grief. Her pale blue eyes hold mine, steady as lake water, deep as time. Grief before forgiveness. You cannot let go of what you have not allowed yourself to hold. The words settle over me like a weight, a directive, a challenge, a lifeline I do not yet know how to grasp. I buy the sunflowers at the bodega on Maple Street, the one where Kyle used to grab energy drinks before his shifts at the record store. The woman behind the counter wraps the stems in brown paper without meeting my eyes. She remembers. Everyone in this neighborhood remembers. The flowers are too bright against my black jacket. Their yellow faces bob with each step as I walk through the cemetery gates. It is barely past dawn. The air tastes like wet grass and overturned earth. My stomach churns. I have not been here since the burial. 2 years. 731 days if I am counting. And I am always counting. His plot sits in the newer section, where the headstones still have sharp edges and the grass grows thick. Not like the neglected graves in the back where Dorothy kneels every Sunday. I force my legs forward, one step, then another. The sunflowers shake in my grip. There, 3rd row, under the oak tree, Kyle Andrew Chen, beloved son and brother. His dates carved into gray granite. 26 years. That is all they gave him. 26 years and a headstone that does not even mention his laugh or the way he drummed his fingers on every surface or how he knew every lyric to every song that mattered. I stop 3 feet away. My throat locks. The grave is clean. Someone has been here recently. Mom, probably. She comes every Saturday, leaves daffodils, tells him about her week like he is just away on vacation. I have not called her in 6 months. I should turn around. This was a mistake. Dorothy does not know what she is talking about. Grief before forgiveness. What does that even mean? I have been drowning in grief for 2 years. It has not helped. It has not changed anything. But my knees bend. The damp ground soaks through my jeans. I set the sunflowers against the headstone, adjust them twice, then pull my hands back. Hey, I say. My voice cracks on the single syllable. The word hangs in the empty air. A breeze moves through the oak branches. Somewhere across the cemetery, a crow calls. I brought your favorites. I touch one golden petal. It is soft as skin. Remember when you filled my apartment with them after I got dumped by that guy from the coffee shop? You said sunflowers were proof that the universe had not given up on beauty. I told you that was the dumbest thing I had ever heard. My chest tightens. I press my palm against the cold stone. The granite pulls heat from my skin. I got the promotion, senior designer, corner desk, windows facing the park. You would have thrown a party, ordered too much pizza, invited people I did not even like, played that terrible band you loved way too loud. My throat constricts. I ate takeout alone and went to bed at 9. The words come faster now, spilling out like water through cracked glass. Mom has a boyfriend. Carl, he is nice, I guess, laughs at her jokes. She sounds happy on her voicemail messages. I have not called her back. I do not know how to talk to her anymore. She wants me to come to dinner and meet him and pretend like we are still a family, like there is not this massive hole where you used to be. My vision blurs. I swipe at my eyes with my sleeve. She has forgiven him, Kyle, the driver. She said it at the sentencing hearing. Stood up in front of everyone and said she forgave him. 6 months. He got 6 months for killing you, and she forgave him. The rage rises like bile. How could she do that? How could she stand there and let him off that easy? I am shaking now. The anger I have nursed for 2 years pulses hot beneath my ribs. He is out now, living his life. Posted on social media about his new job, his fresh start, his second chance. Meanwhile, you are here, in the ground. And I am supposed to what? Forgive, move on, pretend like justice was served. The words scrape my throat raw. I double over, forehead nearly touching the top of the headstone. The stone smells like rain and minerals. I met someone, I whisper. An old woman named Dorothy. She tends the grave of the man who killed her husband, plants flowers for him every single Sunday for 25 years. She is insane. Or maybe I am insane for thinking that means something. A sob breaks loose, then another. They come in waves, violent and relentless, tearing through me until I cannot breathe. I press my fist against my mouth, but it does not stop the sounds. My ribs ache. My lungs burn. I cry until my throat is stripped and my face is wet and my body is hollow. I do not know how long I kneel there. The sun climbs higher. The shadows shift. My knees go numb. When the tears finally slow, I am exhausted, wrung out. The rage is still there, coiled in my gut like a living thing. It has not disappeared. Dorothy was wrong about that. But something else is there too. Something I have not felt in 2 years. Space, just a little. Just enough to pull a full breath without the weight crushing my chest. The armor I have worn since the funeral has cracked. Not broken, not removed, but cracked. Light gets in where it could not before. I do not know if I can forgive him, I tell Kyle. My voice is hoarse, barely more than breath. I do not know if I am supposed to, but Dorothy says grief comes first, so I am here. Doing the grief part. Is that okay? The breeze picks up. The sunflowers rustle against the stone. I stand slowly, legs stiff and aching. I wipe my face with my palms. My eyes are swollen. I probably look like hell. I do not care. I will come back, I say. It is a promise. To him, to myself. Not every week, maybe, but I will come back. I turn to leave. That is when I see it. Across the cemetery, near the neglected section with the crooked headstones and overgrown weeds. A faded blue sedan, a rosary hanging from the rearview mirror. Dorothy, my pulse quickens. She is not kneeling at the grave today. She is standing, watching. Our eyes meet across the distance. She does not wave, does not smile, just nods once. Slow and deliberate. She knew I would be here. My hands curl into fists at my sides. Part of me wants to walk over there, demand to know why she is watching, why she cares, what she wants from me. But another part, the part that is raw and exhausted and newly cracked open, understands. She is bearing witness. The way she did in the diner when I confessed about Kyle. She is not here to guide or fix or absolve. She is simply here, holding space for the grief I have finally allowed myself to feel. I stand there, frozen between Kyle's grave and Dorothy's distant figure. The morning sun breaks through the oak branches, casting patterns of light and shadow across the wet grass. The sunflowers glow bright yellow against gray stone. Something is shifting inside me. I can feel it. This slow tectonic movement beneath everything I thought I knew about pain and justice and survival. It terrifies me, but I do not run, not yet. I drive to the cemetery on Sunday morning with nothing in my hands. No sunflowers this time, no gifts, just my keys digging into my palm and the low hum of the engine that cuts out when I park under the oak tree near the gates. The air smells like wet grass and turned earth. Spring pushing through the cracks in winter. I tell myself I am going to Kyle's grave again. That is what I planned. What makes sense? But my feet do not take me there. Instead, I walk the gravel path toward the neglected back section, past the marble angels with moss creeping up their wings, past the old family plots with names I have memorized without meaning to. My breath comes shallow. I do not know why I am here, in this part of the cemetery where the stones are simpler, and the grass grows wild between the rows. Then I see her. Dorothy kneels at the unmarked grave, her silver hair catching the morning light. She wears the same cardigan she always does, pale blue with buttons like small moons. A paper bag sits beside her, the kind from the hardware store. White daisies rest against her knee, their stems wrapped in damp paper towels. She does not look up when I approach. Her hands move steady in the soil, pulling weeds from around the stone. The headstone with only numbers, 1998. I stop 3 feet away. My throat closes. She glances at me then, just a flicker of pale blue eyes, and returns to her work. No surprise, no questions, like she has been expecting me. I stand there useless, my hands empty at my sides. The wind moves through the oak branches overhead. A crow calls from somewhere beyond the cemetery fence. Dorothy reaches into the paper bag and pulls out a second trowel. The metal gleams dull in the sunlight. She sets it on the grass between us, then goes back to loosening the dirt around the base of the stone. The trowel sits there, waiting. I do not move. My pulse hammers in my ears. This is the grave of the man who killed her husband, the 23-year-old drunk driver who died instantly, while Richard lived 3 days hooked to machines. The man Dorothy has tended for 25 years, planting flowers at a grave no one else visits. I should leave, walk back to my car, drive to Kyle's section and sit with my own dead. But I do not. I kneel. The grass is damp against my jeans. Cold seeps through the denim. I pick up the trowel, and the wooden handle is warm from where it sat in the sun. My hand closes around it. Dorothy does not acknowledge me. She digs a shallow hole near the left side of the headstone, her fingers dark with soil. I watch the way she works, efficient and careful, making space for roots to take hold. I press the trowel into the earth on the right side. The ground resists, then gives. Dirt crumbles under the blade. I scoop it out, set it aside. My hands shake. We work in silence. The rhythm settles into my bones. Dig, scoop, set aside. Dig, scoop, set aside. Dorothy lifts a daisy from the bundle and lowers it into the hole she has made. She covers the roots gently, patting the soil firm with her palms. I dig another hole. She plants another flower. The sun climbs higher. Sweat gathers at the base of my neck. My knees ache against the hard ground. Dirt wedges beneath my fingernails, gritty and dark. Dorothy hands me a daisy without a word. The stem is thin and green in my palm, fragile. I lower it into the hole I dug. The roots spread pale and tangled. I cover them with soil, pressing down the way Dorothy does, firm but not crushing. A bird lands on the headstone, small and brown. It tilts its head, watching us, then flies away. I do not know how long we kneel there. Time moves differently in this place, stretched thin or compressed tight. The daisies fill in around the stone, white petals stark against the dark earth. Dorothy sits back on her heels, brushing dirt from her hands. I do the same. She looks at the flowers. I look at them too. They are just daisies, simple and small. They will wilt in a week, maybe 2. Then Dorothy will return and plant more. She has done this for 25 years. She will do it until she cannot anymore. I do not understand it. I do not understand her. But I am here. Dorothy reaches into the paper bag one more time and pulls out a thermos. She unscrews the cap, and steam rises into the cool air. Coffee. She pours some into the cap and hands it to me. I take it. The metal is warm against my palms. I sip. Black, no sugar, bitter and grounding. She pours some for herself in a second cap she produces from her cardigan pocket. We sit side by side on the damp grass, drinking coffee in front of a grave that belongs to a stranger, to a killer, to someone Dorothy chose to forgive. I still carry rage. It sits in my chest like a stone, sharp-edged and heavy. I think of the driver who killed Kyle, the man who got 6 months and walked free while my brother is ash in the ground. I think of my mother who forgave him and how I wanted to scream at her for it. I do not forgive. Maybe I never will. Dorothy finishes her coffee and screws the cap back onto the thermos. She stands slowly, joints creaking. I stand too. My knees protest. Dirt streaks my jeans, my hands, the cuffs of my jacket. She looks at me then, really looks at me, and her pale blue eyes are calm as lake water. She does not say anything. She does not need to. She picks up the empty paper bag and the thermos. I hand her the trowel. She takes it, but then she reaches into the bag one last time and pulls out a small packet, daisy seeds. She presses them into my palm. Her hand is warm and rough with calluses. Then she walks away, her footsteps soft on the gravel path, her blue cardigan disappearing between the rows of stones. I stand alone at the unmarked grave. The daisies nod in the breeze. The packet of seeds is light in my hand, almost weightless. I do not know what I will do with them. I do not know if I will come back next Sunday or the Sunday after that. I do not know if I will ever visit this grave again, or if I will only go to Kyle's, bringing sunflowers and stories and the slow, painful work of grief. I do not have answers. I do not have forgiveness. But I have this. Dirt under my nails, daisies planted, coffee shared, a packet of seeds in my hand. I have Dorothy, who showed me that survival does not require resolution, that healing does not demand perfection, that you can carry both rage and tenderness, both pain and presence, and still choose to kneel in the dirt and plant something. I turn away from the grave and walk back through the cemetery. The sun warms my shoulders. My legs are tired. My hands smell like earth. Kyle's headstone rises ahead, gray granite with his name carved deep. I stop there. The sunflowers I brought last week are wilted in their vase, petals curled and brown. I kneel again. I remove the dead flowers and set them aside. I do not have new ones to replace them, but I have the seeds. I tear open the packet. White daisy seeds spill into my palm, small and dark. I dig a shallow trench along the base of Kyle's stone with my fingers. No trowel this time, just my hands in the soil. I scatter the seeds. I cover them gently. I pat the earth firm. They will not bloom for weeks, maybe months, but they will bloom. I sit back, my hands dark with dirt, and I tell Kyle about Dorothy, about the coffee and the trowel and the unmarked grave, about how I do not understand it, but I am trying, about how I am learning to survive without answers. The wind moves through the cemetery. The oak trees whisper. A crow calls again, distant and low. I stand. I brush the dirt from my knees. I leave the wilted sunflowers in a pile beside the path for the groundskeeper to collect. I walk back to my car. I do not know what next Sunday will bring. I do not know if the rage will ever leave or if I will carry it forever, a stone in my chest. But I know I will return, not for forgiveness, not for closure, for this, the work of hands in earth, the quiet presence of another person who understands, the slow, unglamorous labor of learning to survive. That is enough. For now, it is enough.